You're just not hearing who the US is talking to. Their foreign minister, he's the one who's sometimes visible. Sometimes it's the speaker that seems to be taking decisions. But who really is taking decisions? So a narrative is being set that yes, the war has been lost, but Iran still stands as a proud sovereign nation. It's not a country that will accept a surrender-like thing like the Pakistanis did. If you look at Iran overall, what have they not lost? The axis of resistance, the Shia arc. Look at that. Syria, gone. Syria was one of the... it was your extended frontier all the way to the Mediterranean. Where is it today? It's gone. Al-Shara, a Sunni, is sitting there. Earlier, it was in the hands of a Shia person, Bashar al-Assad. He's gone. Where is he? We don't know. Hezbollah, badly beaten. Hamas, badly beaten. Iraq, you don't really know whether Iranians, because after Qasem Soleimani was taken off, who is really in charge of Iraq from Iran side? You don't really know. Houthis, they're on a back burner. They are firing their missiles here and there. But think about the axis of resistance. Where is it? It's gone. It's dead. Iran is being governed by a Shura Council, the Majlis commentators. But these 12 people who sit in the Shura Council, they are telling about theology, and that is how they're telling this is how Iran will be governed, this is how Syria will be governed, and this is how Islam is asking us to lead our lives. Who are you threatening when you're doing that? You are threatening the other kingdoms around you where kings are ruling. Who are the kings? Pick up your entire Gulf Cooperation Council. Saudi, Kuwait, Bahrain, Iraq, leave apart Iraq, Qatar, UAE, everybody has got a king. And these people have been worried about Iran from the day Khomeini walked in, 1979.
Yeah.
Because when Khomeini came in, he said, I'm going to set up an Islamic nation. And I'm going to make sure that these kings who are sitting around me are tomorrow toppled. And in place of them, it is the Islamic theology, the Islamic scholars who lead their countries as per the Islamic laws.
I'm Aditi Prasad, and with me is Maj Sudeep Singh, geopolitical commentator. Welcome to the show, sir, and thank you for speaking to us today. I want to start off with the obvious, which is Iran, the Iran war. जहाँ पता नहीं चल रहा है क्या चल रहा है.
See, first of all, let's go back to a man called Saddam Hussein. Where was he found? He was found hiding inside a gutter in a manhole. That's where you pulled him out from. And obviously, somebody like Saddam Hussein, if he's picked up from a gutter, from a drain hole, he's not a person you would want to talk to. You would want to talk to somebody who's in control. And the problem that US is facing and the Iranians themselves are facing is that there doesn't seem to be anybody who's in control. The moment you speak about the younger Khomeini, Mustapha, you don't know whether he has the backing of the Shura Council. You don't know whether he has the backing of the IRGC. Within IRGC, after the head was taken off, you don't really know who's controlling IRGC. We always hear of those 31 divisions being headed by various commanders of IRGC. Who is leading them? Is it the speaker? Is it Pezeshkian, who's the president, who's still there? But still nobody seems to be talking about him at all. So my take is that US has been able to achieve quite a lot in Iran. See, militarily, it's not an easy thing to do. Within the first strike, you get 48 top leaders. And then within the next 6-7 days, you take out 80% of the military capability of a country. Not just military capability, but also the industrial capacity of the country. So militarily, I think they have done wonderful. We can keep talking about all the Shahid drones flying and at a cheap cost, and Iran giving a bloody nose to the US and to Israel. But no, that's not how I see it. I think US has done a fair amount of damage on Israel, on Iran. And right now, the struggle that the whole world is caught in, there is a trick to it. This person that you want to talk to, whoever it is, the moment they speak something which sounds like a language which US wants you to speak, this person is dead. So obviously, you're just not hearing who the US is talking to. Their foreign minister, he's the one who's sometimes visible. Sometimes it's the speaker that seems to be taking decisions. But who really is taking decisions? So a narrative is being set that yes, the war has been lost, but Iran still stands as a proud sovereign nation. It's not a country that will accept a surrender like thing like the Pakistanis did. That way, whoever you project as a leader tomorrow will be acceptable, will be digestible to the Iranian population. Anybody who gives even a hint that we have lost is not a person which will be accepted by the Iranian people, and thereby whatever solution you arrive at will immediately fall. It will collapse.
So you're basically saying that Iran has lost, but yeah, but that's not the words that we hear coming out of a lot of people, including Donald Trump.
If you try and throw some kind of a solution at them which makes them look bad, which makes them look lesser, they will not accept it. So you have to give them time. And you will keep doing this smallish kind of posturing over and over again. You fly a drone. See, memes won't win you a war. Memes are flying like 1,000 a day, but that's not what is going to win you a war. If you look at Iran overall, what have they not lost? The axis of resistance, the Shia arc. Look at that. Syria, gone. Syria was one of the, it was your extended frontier all the way to the Mediterranean. Where is it today? It's gone. Al-Shara, a Sunni, is sitting there. Earlier, it was in the hands of a Shia person, Bashar al-Assad. He's gone. Where is he? We don't know. Hezbollah, badly beaten. Hamas, badly beaten. Iraq, you don't really know whether Iranians, because after Qasem Soleimani was taken off, who is really in charge of Iraq from Iran's side? You don't really know. Houthis, they're on a back burner. They are firing their missiles here and there. But think about the axis of resistance. Where is it? It's gone. It's dead. Yes, the minor irritants will keep flying from here and there. And that will give some bit of pride to the Iranian people. And that will also, see, what I'm trying to say is that if you have, agar aapko mugli gutti pilani hai Iraniyon ko, ki please accept that we are the kind of leaders who are looking after your interest, then they have to be seen to be doing that. And how are they to be seen to be doing that? By creating that kind of nuisance. But they do not have many cards. They do not have much of bargaining chips to be. See, militarily, the damage is extensive on Iran.
But let me just circle back to America's goals. Regime change was one of the stated goals of Trump in Iran.
Yeah.
That regime change does not seem to have happened, especially if you don't know who you're talking to. Nobody's seen the younger Khomeini, Mustafa anywhere since, maybe since he's taken over the mantle. So what exactly the regime change angle that is not achieved, then Iran can just dial back in a few years to where it was 3 years ago, because the uranium is still there.
Yeah.
Inside Iranians.
Yes.
And if you don't know who to talk to, chances perhaps are that there are some really hardline people calling the shots.
When you say regime change, what exactly do you mean? See, when it comes to the regime, 3 weeks back, the leaders of Saudi and the UAE, who are now perhaps at some bit of friction amongst themselves, there was a statement which is let out, finish what you started, Mr. President. The famous ones, you remember that? When there was this small possibility that US may not finish the job, it might just pull back. What is it that these two were trying to say? When you speak about regime change, we were not talking about the person getting changed from top. We were talking about the thought process getting changed. See, Iran is controlled by a regime which is led by Islamic scholars. Make a comparison between, there was this fight in the ancient Indian kingdoms about whether a Brahmin leads or a Kshatriya leads, the Chanakya versus Chandragupta Maurya thing. It's very similar to that in the Arab world. On one side are the Arab scholars, call them the Ayatollahs and everybody which Iran is being governed by a Shura Council. The Majlis come later, but these 12 people who sit in the Shura Council, they are telling about theology, and that is how they're telling this is how Iran will be governed, this is how Syria will be governed, and this is how Islam is asking us to lead our lives. Who are you threatening when you're doing that? You are threatening the other kingdoms around you where kings are ruling. Who are the kings? Pick up your entire Gulf Cooperation Council. Saudi, Kuwait, Bahrain, Iraq, leave apart Iraq, Qatar, UAE, everybody has got a king. And these people have been worried about Iran from the day Khomeini walked in, 1979.
Yeah.
Because when Khomeini came in, he said, I'm going to set up an Islamic nation. And I'm going to make sure that these kings who are sitting around me are tomorrow toppled. And in place of them, it is the Islamic theology, the Islamic scholars who lead their countries as per the Islamic laws. So when you say regime change, essentially what you're trying to say is, please take this off our heads, this constant threat that an Islamic scholar is going to tomorrow come and sit on our heads and our kingdoms are going to go for a toss. Because the kings are worried about their kingdoms going away, their empires going away. So that is the thought they are worried about. And the reason why they're repeatedly saying, get this regime off our heads is because US has been pushed out of a similar situation twice in the past. First was in 1983, when from Beirut, a peacekeeping force, the Marines who were sent by Ronald Reagan, they were pushed out, Bashar al-Assad's father. Him and the Khomeini from Iran, they came together, discovered something called the human bomb, implemented it very well on the Marines in Beirut. 63 people died in the embassy attacks, and then 250 more. But what happened then? Within 4 months, the US Marines pulled out of the Middle East. Now imagine the kind of boost or a fillip a thought will get if you push the US out within 4 months of coming in. Second time, it happened in Syria. When Russia walked in spite of Obama having discovered that the Syrians had used chemical bombs in Syria against the Syrian people, his inability to do anything, Russians coming in and Americans walking out. Twice. 2 बार ये शिकस्त इनको दे चुके हैं. Third time, if they go back again, it is not acceptable to anybody in the Gulf.
So what does that finish look like? Because
there will be
again,
a regime change. The thought will change. The thought is bound to change.
Okay.
Take my word on it. The thought will change. You will
That
see a new
sounds
regime.
very optimistic, though.
It
I'm
has
looking
to be,
at it from where
either it has to happen that way, or else you will see a fragmented Iran ruled by gang lords. The moment you say these 31 division commanders of IRGC are decentralized, what is the biggest thing that Iran is saying today? Fine, you killed 48 top leaders of ours. The army chief went out, the Quds force went out, everybody went out. But we are decentralized. These people are going to continue to fight you all along. What if these people tomorrow become gang lords of their own? Which is also the fear for US, because they can. It's easier to talk to a centralized authority if you really want to implement a solution. If you have multiple people to talk to, it's never a solution. Though I must also say that Iraq today is a similar solution. You have the Kurds ruling a part. You have a PMG or RMG, what agency that is. They are ruling at one place. The government is ruling at one place. So you have a fragmented country, which is also a good model, because that way, throw some money and you're able to control all these warlords.
I was speaking to Jeffrey Sachs, the American professor and a geopolitical analyst, and he said something very, very strange to me. He said Trump will never be able to defeat Iran because they talk about an ideology.
Yes.
They don't talk about money or power. They don't care about money or power. And that is the reason, he says, that is the reason that he will never be able to get around to defeating them. What would you say to that?
See, whenever a king changes, a lot of thought changes. It's the beauty of the person who's sitting at the top. Yeah, we've seen pictures of Iran at the time of Pahlavis, very progressive nation, and then suddenly the king changes. You get a Khomeini sitting and a Khomeini who follows up, and their thought process takes over the nation. Constantine, the Roman Empire, he becomes Christian 3 centuries after Christ, and whole Europe and the world together turns into Christianity. When somebody at the top is coming in with a changed thought process, things change. You can see our own country also. You'll see a lot of examples when somebody who's sitting in the top chair comes with a different set of thoughts, is able to change things. Yes, you are absolutely right that these people are not going to accept a white flag. These people are not going to accept defeat. But at the same time, solutions which are palatable to them, where you say, fine, this much is agreeable. And that's why I'm repeatedly saying you will have to give them some time. You know, within Iran, there is a large population which is unhappy with the way things were being done.
Right, the same people who
Yes.
came out on the streets in
Yes,
January
the hijab
this year.
protest and everything.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of people who were against it. Say 25% of the population of Iran is of Turkish descent. Their nativity is to Turks. The Kurds are also there. So even if you just put these population blocks together, then also you see a number like a 40%, which is a very high number in any country. So for these people, try and find an escape. How do we know that they themselves do not want an escape from that? If they get a conducive environment, if they get a leader who supports their voice, and then the hardliners, if they somehow feel a little bit challenged, it can come about. But yes, it will take time. And please accept this part. There's something called a line of fire. You know, when a column of army walks, the first person in the line of fire is the one who really
There's the brunt.
bears the brunt. The barrage of fire comes onto him. So nobody wants to be this first person in the line of fire. And that's why you're seeing no faces from the Iranian side.
So, if you're saying that there is going to be a regime change, how is that going to take place? Just aerial bombardment wouldn't do it, right?
Wouldn't do it.
There was some thoughts that there should be some people from inside Iran that we are speaking to. There were some people in the US administration saying that who we will talk to them and sort of get them to sort of effectuate this regime change from inside. A third option is also was also on the table, which is of ground operations, because you can't effectuate a regime change without ground ops. That Trump has said no to. Why?
Boots on ground, not going to happen. But also do not forget that just about 3 weeks back, what were we saying? We were saying all the US warships, the destroyers and the aircraft carriers and everything, they've pulled back all the way to Diego Garcia. That's how far they had gone. And now what do we hear? That all those destroyers, all those vessels have come back closer to Hormuz. Some of them were even engaged in trying to take the mines off the Strait of Hormuz and trying to create a shipping channel so that Strait of Hormuz opens up again. So things have changed. How has Iran permitted that? Which means that there is some bit of understanding between the two regimes that the US Navy, even if it comes closer to the Iranian shore, will not be attacked, will not be fired upon. Yes, there is stray fire. See, nobody is going to let their entire leverage go away. Nobody is going to just say, I hold no cards. If you hold no cards, nobody will talk to you. But at the same time, there is also sufficient signal from the side, because the proof of the pudding is that the ceasefire still holds in spite of all the posturing.
But then now it seems that the allies of the US themselves have had a sort of a falling apart, which is seen by UAE's exit from OPEC and thereafter. Of course, there's rivalry, which has been simmering beneath the surface all this while. Now it's out in the open. What has changed? How does that change the dynamics there?
A lot has been see between UAE and Saudi. It's been going on for a very long while. Not from today. It's probably between two nations like IPRs are stolen. Similar is what I see between UAE and Saudi. You see, UAE is the first one who figured oil is not going to last me. Yeah, so that is the reason why they came out with the Jebel Ali port, which was the first large port in Dubai, catering not only to Dubai or not only to UAE, but to the entire Gulf region. Now everybody is aware of the geography of Hormuz and where UAE sits and where the ports are sitting. And see, they created the port, but not only the port, but also the infrastructure around it. They made it a deep sea port, so all your ULCC, the ultra large crude carriers, and the VLCCs, and the large ships, they could come into the Gulf and berth at the Dubai port. What were you doing? You were picking up all the oil from all these Gulf countries and transporting it out from Dubai. And also, all that had to come into the Gulf region was docking at Dubai. So, in a way, you became the middleman.
Yeah.
You became the first port for all that was moving in and out of the Gulf region. Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi, Bahrain, Qatar, everybody. Even Oman, because Oman, though, sits much outside and onto the south, but their needs were also being met through this infrastructure. Who did not like it? Saudi, because they said, why do I need a middleman? And they created a port of their own. But Dubai had already mastered the model of the port. They knew how a port functions. So what did they do next? They went in for a string of ports. They put in a port in the Red Sea. They went across onto the Red Sea into Sudan. They put up a port there. They went to Tanzania. So in the Horn of Africa, Bab el-Mandeb and everything, that is where they set up their ports. They set up ports in on the Tanzania side. They put ports in India. They have terminals in Navashava where... So they are creating... What are they trying to do there? If I have my ports in Europe, in Africa, in the Americas, the Red Sea, and then at Dubai, then it's quite obvious that if a ship is starting from there,
they're going to come to my ports.
it will come to my port. It will come to my string of ports. Yeah, that is a model which they were trying to implement, but that was going in crosshairs with Saudi, because one of these ports is Saudi. One side it is choked at the Strait of Hormuz. And if you come to the other side, it gets choked at the Red Sea.
Red Sea.
Because you have the desert.
And then you have the Houthis there.
And you have the Houthis there. And that is where, just before this fight broke out with Iran, there was another bombardment which happened in Yemen, where the Saudis attacked a force which was supported by UAE. And UAE beat a retreat. But is that the only place the two are fighting together? They're not. They're fighting in Eritrea, Ethiopia. In Egypt, Sisi was put in chair by UAE against the wishes of Saudi. Saudi was supporting the other party. Libya, Haftar is supported, the only other field marshal in the world is being supported by UAE. And the main forces are being supported by Saudi. Somalia, RSF, supported by UAE. And the government forces supported by Saudi. So it's Somaliland just across, because if you have right now what you're facing in the Strait of Hormuz, the same can be faced by you in the Red Sea. And if that also gets choked, another 12% of your oil flow goes out, because that's your route to Europe. That is the route you take to go to the Suez and then on to Europe. So if that also gets blocked, Saudi as an economy is surrounded by unamicable forces. Yemen, UAE wants to set up itself. Beyond that, across Somalia. So Somaliland is a country which has been accepted to be a country only by two countries in the world, Israel and UAE. And that country has come up, much against the wishes of Saudi Arabia. Above that, further north, Sudan.
Wow, I feel like the
It's-
map is stretching right in front of my eyes.
And
But you're right.
And all of them. So what is happening here? So Saudi is now worried about this model, and what are they doing as a result? The conflict point between the two, the Vision 2030 document of MBS, what does it say? It says that we want all these AI companies and all the infrastructure and the Amazon and the Microsoft and the IBMs and everything, we want them to come and put up their headquarters in Riyadh, in Saudi. But if they put up their headquarters there, where will they pick up from? They will lift up from Dubai. So a successful model which was created by Dubai to bring in all these people by being a little bit un-Islamic, throwing in some money.
And giving a cosmopolitan culture.
A cosmopolitan touch. Now, Saudi is saying that if you do not put your headquarters and the facilities in Riyadh, you will not get government contracts. So, a direct threat to all these companies, which says you have to be with me. There is no other option. And that is a direct affront to UAE, because where will these people lift up from? From Dubai. So it's a straight challenge, and it's been started by Saudi. The Pakistanis are coming in for defense. So the Pakistani play. Why do they want
Yeah,
Pakistan?
that's the important thing, because
Yes.
now it also is, it seems that the UAE is pretty upset with this whole defense pact between Saudi and Pakistan. What's that angle?
There are some things that UAE can offer. How does Saudi break that? You know, Saudi, being a conservative country and also home to Mecca and Medina, cannot shed their image, though they now allow women to drive alone, though they now allow foreigners to buy liquor. But still, it is no match, like you said, cosmopolitan culture. Expats
Yeah.
getting attracted like bees to Dubai and to UAE as a whole. Will they go to Saudi? So what is so great about so when you say that Dubai, there are projectiles flying over it, I would really question myself that in this kind of fog of war, is it really the Iranians who are firing? In this kind of an environment where you don't really know who's firing at whom.
firing, yeah.
If you give some money to one of these IRGC generals to fly some projectiles over Dubai, will they not do it? They will. They will take their chances, and it helps them.
Yeah.
Diplomatically also. So now, Pakistanis are not going to Saudi for the first time. They've been there before. Last time round also, they went there as chowkidars. They're not going there to fight a battle. They're going there as chowkidar, as security men to the installations, to the infrastructure that is going to come up there. That is going to be their primary duty if they go there. And that is what the Saudis are trying to project to the world. Fine, I'm not giving you so much of an open lifestyle and everything, but at the same time, I'm giving you a lot of security, which is what is needed, for anybody who is going to put in billions and trillions of investment into Saudi Arabia, their own investment, and then pick up from the government contracts and everything. They would want some kind of security to their investment. That is what the play is right now.
But there's also the nuclear button, really, because Pakistan being one of the few Muslim nations, not actually the only Muslim nation
With a
with a nuclear
Yes.
button. So, and Saudi feels that is sort of, I mean, that's what the assumption is, that is one big reason why the defense pact was signed, so that it was a counter against the Iranians.
No, I would not say that it's meant to go as far as a nuclear. See, like
It may not go as far, but
so,
it's,
see, as a
the
conventional
deterrence
army,
is there.
Even as a conventional army, Pakistani army can be considered to be a formidable armed force. So yes, the moment you say that the Pakistani forces like boots on ground are with me, it's a big statement. There is no doubting that. So even if we keep the nuclear button aside, as a conventional force, also they're a good force. They have a formidable air force. They have a fairly well disciplined army. Though the last time round when the Pakistanis were thrown out of Saudi Arabia, it was with the fear that they might just do something which is not conducive to the idea of the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They were scared. They were afraid. So that's the reason why they were thrown out the last time around. They brought them back again. So even conventionally, and it's not just a bulwark against the Iranians, it's also against the other powers like the UAE. So the messaging may not just be to Iran, because if the messaging was against Iran alone, it would have happened at the start of the war. It did not happen at the start of the war. It happened at the end of the war. Don't miss out on the timelines. When Saudi was being attacked by Iran, the first wave, the first immediate aftermath when the Iranians started attacking UAE and Saudi and everybody, did Pakistan commit its troops? It did not. And the whole world was asking, you just got into an agreement with them, you just got into a contract with them. Where are you? No, they did not come in. They are coming in now. So it's just messaging, and the messaging is of a security envelope that you're giving to the investors who now are being coaxed to come into Saudi Arabia either by the lure of the government contracts. If these people see the timelines, the moment these people were asked to invest their billions into this infrastructure is exactly the time when all this happens. And all these attacks, you heard of the IBM and the Amazon and all their facilities being bombed by Iran in the middle of all of it. Which means, these things have a bearing. Do not also forget, when did we get into a conflict with China? That was a time when China was being left by the investors and people wanted to invest in India. And exactly at that time, China started off this thing. So there was a message going to the investors, oh, where are you going? The security of this country itself is not sure, So it's
it's
messaging.
flexing. It's flexing
It's
now.
flexing. So my take on it is that Pakistani army sitting there has got a direct messaging to UAE, and which is the reason why so much commotion suddenly. UAE talking to Modi, the I2U2, all these things have suddenly, immediately after the Saudi deal was inked, the UAE president comes in for a 3-hour visit to meet PM Modi.
Yeah.
And now on the 15th, when PM Modi travels, he goes to UAE precisely for 3 hours.
Okay, and just before UAE's opaque exit, Ajit Doval and Shankar
Yes.
fly into UAE. So clearly there's something is in works. The Prime Minister is going again to the UAE on the 15th, I think. But this entire axis which is developing, a sort of an India-Israel UAE axis that's taking shape, how much of it is borne out by the Saudi-Pakistan bonhomie?
India-Middle East corridor had come up before only.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, a trade route is being developed.
Planned.
It is in the works, and it will come through. Though it's a dead goat right now, but it will revive itself because it's a viable one. And now with the Strait of Hormuz telling you where the choke points are, even more so. So UAE also has a part to the south, from where they can receive supplies and the container ships and everything on the south of Strait of Hormuz without the interference of the Iranis. I mean, you can argue that there is never a safe point because they're so close to each other. But at the same time, it's a port which is not dependent so much on the Strait of Hormuz. You're outside. And that becomes a very lucrative route. Plus also the pipelines which are being laid for oil. UAE has laid a pipeline, and so has Saudi, the East-West pipeline. Now you are creating this channel, and Saudi and Pakistan obviously have to counter that. And there might just be a China play as well, because uh,
A China play and a Turkey play.
and so
It's
if this route comes up, who are the sufferers? The ships, where are they passing through right now? Suez. So if the India-Middle
Egypt.
East corridor, Egypt, if the India-Middle East corridor comes in, that means you're bypassing the Suez, because you're taking a land route which is starting from UAE and going all the way to Haifa, from where you get into ports again, and then go into Europe. And in Europe, you're not going to Turkey; you're going to Greece. So Turkey itself, yes, they have to the Black Sea route, and the countries on the eastern side of Europe, they would still be served by Turkey, but even Turkey is a sufferer there, and they have a play. They also have skin in the game.
yeah, and they're
that's it.
developing this entire middle corridor instead, which is already in the works, and that's linking China, Central Asia, then Europe, and of course Turkey being the big
Yes,
hub
yes.
in between.
So this your ability to deny a person, and your ability to create another corridor and get in more prosperity to all that you're touching, there is also of value, and people are trying to do it. People will not just keep looking at Suez and say, fine, it is there, it is serving the world. They will try to find avenues. I mean, there have been plans to dig a similar tunnel through Israel. It turned out to be a non-starter, but at the same time, they planned on it. And any number of times I look at the map of Israel, and I'm like, oh my God, these people were thinking of this then. When we used to take a car, by car, you can cover top to bottom of Israel in 6 to 7 hours. And there is this little tongue goes all the way down south into Israel to a place called Eilat. And Eilat sits in the Red Sea. So when they were making the map of Israel, they were connecting Mediterranean to the Red Sea, and thereon to the Arabian Sea, and thereon to the Indian Ocean. Because at that time, they perhaps feared that maybe Suez tomorrow is not in our control. And it happened, during the Egyptian crisis,
yeah.
the 70s.
Yeah.
When they closed the Suez, Israel is open. Otherwise, you had to go all the way
Everywhere.
down to the Cape and take a roundabout of Africa. So just think about how far they were thinking.
Things are changing at a very rapid pace. The India, UAE, Israel axis is also apart from IMEC and I2U2 and all these things. There is also a very strong defense partnership at play here.
Right.
There's the Saudi-Pakistan thing, and then there's the UAE-Israel-India thing. What is this axis, and how can this sort of bolster and be a win-win for defense for both, or actually all three sides?
Yeah. So, see, like you said, the government is handling it very well, being quiet sometimes, and just giving, because, in today's world, being loud doesn't seem to be a very good idea. So they're not being loud, they're just sending out subtle messages, and those messages are working well. But at the same time, see, India has always had this reluctance of committing our own troops, our army, our armed forces on foreign lands, because we do not have a population which believes in body bags coming back home for a cause which was not an Indian cause. I think it somewhere needs a change. Perhaps media will have a role to play in there. When you have to posture yourself in the international arena, there will be places where you will have to send out your armed forces if you have to kind of, come across. We don't have to come across as occupying forces or anything, but wherever our business interests are to be safeguarded or to be propagated, those are the places where we should say, yes, it's okay to have boots on grounds because it overall feeds into our sense of security. So,
So are you saying that India should look at a defense agreement with UAE where we send our soldiers there, boots on the ground?
So, as I read from all the reports so far, there is a defense agreement wherein India has offered all that it has to offer in terms of technology, in terms of wherewithal of equipment and everything. But a country the size of UAE, a country the population of UAE is not, but the pockets of UAE, wherein it can buy the best of the equipment from world over, it's really not looking for equipment. It's really not looking for technology because it can buy off the shelf from anywhere. And right now, they are in the best books with Israel. So if we are buying technology from Israel, and you are now aware that Iron Dome was set up and handed over by the Israelis to UAE. Dubai was covered by the Iron Dome. So those relations have already fallen in place in terms of technology and in terms of equipment. But they perhaps are really looking at our forces to be able to support them. And I don't think we should be too reluctant just because historically we have not committed. We have committed ourselves in peacekeeping missions. See, sometimes the government should be able to convince its not subjects, citizens, that it might just be a good idea to extend yourself a little bit. A country the size and the stature of what India is today, if we have to really reach out to the world, we have to tell our population that it is okay for us to let our defense forces, our armed forces, go to other lands, expand our borders. We've done that. If there was any
We've
way,
largely been peacekeeping forces.
we've been peacekeeping forces, but there also we have had body bags come back. Yes, we called it in the name of peace, but figure out how you do it. Create a facade, convince your people. But you have to do it. This is something that you cannot keep pushing away for a very long time. Yes, it has worked very well for us so far, but I don't think we will be able to project ourselves as a force to be reckoned with in the coming years if we just always say, no, I will not assert myself militarily into other lands. You have to. So Dubai is really not looking for equipment or technology from us. I think a hybrid solution might be in place because Dubai is not too far away. Should it feel threatened, and if we have an agreement which says that the Indian Armed Forces are going to respond in the case of a threat, so be it. Because we can mobilize faster. Now, in today's world with...
And as Operation Sindoor has shown,
Yes.
we can mobilize really, really fast.
Mobilize really quickly. And yes, if your adversary is a Saudi, which is supported by another adversary of ours, who is Pakistan, we have a flank open. So
It's like as though our borders aren't enough to keep us occupied. You want us to go and
but no. So that's the beauty of it. Look at how far Iran pulled its battle off. It took it all the way to Mediterranean. So they said, do not come to me. Just be busy fighting the Hezbollah. Just be busy fighting the Hamas. Don't come to me. So they and that is how you create your buffers. So if you engage your enemy that far away, so much the better for us. And if you are able to create a kind of nuisance for the Pakistanis, and I don't see, I think the trouble that the government of India is facing today is how it is going to be perceived by Saudi Arabia if we commit a force to UAE. That's probably our biggest faux pas. How do we do it? Because, we want to be friendly with Saudi. They are one of the biggest exporters of oil to us.
yeah, because that's that's going to be another tough one to
But
sort of.
then, we didn't start it. You started it. Saudi started it. By inviting Pakistanis, by getting into an agreement with the Pakistanis, they started it. They might just argue that we are having them only as chowkidars, as security men. But you started it. Now that you have started it, I think it should be considered a level playing field. And if we side up with UAE, Yes, it should be an acceptable solution. The problem is that for a long, long time, we have not been able to convince our own people that it makes sense
To use our
to
forces
use.
to flex outside the country.
But just see, there are countries who are doing it. Russia is sitting in Africa, even when it is fighting the bloodiest war since World War II. But it still is fighting in Mali today. The African Corps is fighting there. The Ukrainians are bogged down in their own war. Their contingents are sitting in the Gulf selling drones. So if these smallish countries, Iran, at the peak of all this conflict, was sending drones to Russia, not boots on grounds, but
Yeah.
but in the case of Russia and in the case of Ukraine, they had boots on ground in Africa, in UAE, in the Gulf. So if it is something which is which goes well with the thought process of their population, then I think it's time that we are also able to. We are a large army. 1.2 million is not small.
Yeah.
It's a large army.
As India wants to play, because as we go forward, we will see that India will want to play a more, as so far the signs are there that they want to play a more strategic play in the Gulf, in West Asia, become a key player in that region instead of just sitting on the sidelines. So if that happens, perhaps what you're saying is not.
We used to hear of Somalian pirates. Where are they now?
It's the Indian Navy who got rid of half of them.
And it was not India. We were in foreign waters. We were in the Red Sea,
Yeah.
taking care of the Somali pirates. So we have asserted ourselves beyond our borders. It's just that we have to push slight bit more and perhaps I think this is something which media has to
I mean, it's actually but it's an interesting thought that if you want to flex globally, then you need to sort of be willing to go out there and do it even militarily to show what you stand for. It was lovely speaking with you. We'll of course do a part 2 of this podcast where we'll talk about Africa and the Northeast in India and a lot more, but right now we'll bring an end to this. Otherwise, it's been a fairly long one. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure and privilege.
Absolutely.